Stream is live.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Chichester Chats. It's me, Phil. It is that Lilith, and of course, the man, the future legend himself. It is Mr. D.
Living legend, correction.
Right, living my future glory days. And how are you guys? Is it just us tonight? No other guest stars or no guest commentators? They couldn't. Well, we'll have plenty of fun. So that's
just
all
the original gang.
We're doing
the
it old school.
gang, right? Got the gang back together.
All right.
So here we are. Talk about Rysk number 4.
I was going to say, sir, did you know you have a new comic out? Yes, Rysk number 4.
I do sort of know this, but I was saying to Lilith before I think we went live. BlackBox owes me a bunch of copies of stuff, so I could actually see the So I will bug Demetrios to get my comp copies. But my son tells me it's good. He found it in his local shop, but I'm too nervy, and I want my free copies. So
I think my first question is, how can BlackBox print on this nice glossy paper and everything, and basically charge the same price as Marvel and DC, but it's like their paper quality is not even as good.
They do a really nice job. I mean, I have to give props. Not that I have to give props. I mean, I do give props. I think they do a quality product, from start to finish. I mean, they got a wide, diverse line of characters, not just blowing smoke. I mean, it's sort of like, they cover a lot of genres.
Yeah.
All of them look great. The production values are high, and it's good stuff. So
and you never know who's like who might pop up to write a book or do the art. Some surprisingly big names, like if you're not familiar with BlackBox Comics.
Yeah, I mean, Demetrios is a fan, and he's going after people. I mean, that's it's fortunate he tagged me in, but he's going after all sorts of folks. And Chuck Dixon, I know, has done stuff. Scott McDaniel, I rec out a couple other names. I don't know if that's stuff he's like putting moving forward on, or if there's any interest for them, but he certainly finds folks who may not be as well known but are doing really great work, and folks who've had something going on and giving them a new platform to play in.
Hey, there's an idea. You and Scott McDaniel doing a book. I have a feeling that would do well.
Yeah, I would love to work with Scott again. That would be awesome. I think Scott did their launch title. I'm pretty sure it was the IT Crowd or something like that. I think it was called, and so I think that was the first one that BlackBox did, and Scott was the guy on it. So, and as I think I said on a prior episode, Demetrios had tried to recruit me earlier for something, and I just was not in the right headspace. But fortunately, he was good enough to approach me again, and I was much more sane this time. So
and I'm probably jumping way ahead, but I swear when I popped on, I heard you and Lilith talking. I mean, we do know you have another series coming after this, but then is there more coming after that?
Yeah, I mean, there's the Sword and Sorcery one, which I've shown a couple of things, and if Demetrios doesn't give me a title or a go ahead, we'll just start talking about it anyway. The code title for that is like Skull Warrior, so I don't just keep saying like and I have no idea if that's what he intends to be the final title, but that's looking amazing, and kind of comes at things from such a totally different direction. It was fun to do, but he's jazzed about it, and he actually wants to do. He's asked me to do a sequel to it, which before it's even out. So I'm trying to find the angle on that, and then he had an idea for I'll call it like an alien conspiracy sort of thing, and so that's all roughed out. That's 5 issues roughed out. I'm like adding the detail to the plot, and then I have to start scripting it. But that took a little while to kind of come together and work through. A whole lot of alien conspiracy books. I was doing all my old research, and it took a little bit of time, but it was a good exercise to sort of absorb all these just
All you
inputs,
needed was
not knowing
Ray.
where it goes. Yeah, I mean, the what I thought was going to be one of the best books, which was this crazy ass thing about like Nazis making an alliance with not a fiction book, mind you, a nonfiction book, quote unquote.
Sponsored
Nazis
by the
making
History Channel, no doubt.
yes, yes, with aliens and building bases in the Arctic or the Antarctic, or it was it gave me a few ideas, but it was the least actually the least fodder, I guess, for the stories, which I was surprised by. And so that I'll finish up, probably within the next month, and turn it over to them and see where that kind of goes, and hopefully find a title for it as well. A lot of these things start off with like no titles; they're just like alien, sorcery, that kind of thing. And then I think just as you came on, I was saying I was reading a lot of horror stuff, and I was and it's specifically what I would call grindhouse horror. Things that were just you knew kind of going in they were going to be like grisly and from dusk till dawn sort of attitudes, and they just weren't doing it. They just weren't delivering, and I just got so frustrated that I jumped in and wrote something which is about 75 pages, so I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. But I'm scripting that now, and I may be working on that with Greg Wright, but I don't know if he's he wants to pick up on. But I'd riffed on some stuff early on based on a concept I had, and he riffed with me a little bit and sort of inspired me to take it into a much more pulpy direction, which was the right advice. But I don't know if he wants to continue to have input in on it. But if he does, that would be awesome. But
and this time there's going to be no one to say, pull it back, Dan, that's too much.
No, he never does. He just says, it sucks, it doesn't work. That's basically his, he's never said pull it back. He says, yeah, this just sucks. It's just, you're not, you think you're doing this and you're not doing any of that. So it's a great reality check to have that kind of critic in your corner.
It's so great to hear you have so many other things coming up. And are you like how do you like prevent the burnout? Like how do you stay creative? Do you like just make sure you're taking time for yourself, or you just fill with like all these like backed up ideas, for lack of a better phrase? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think
asking if you're full of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you should know by now. The answer is yes, but I don't think I ever feel creatively burned out. I feel, sometimes it's just finding the time, to juggle it with what I'll say is, more real paying work, and that's the trick, is to make sure you're putting in time on this other stuff. So 6 weeks don't go by and I haven't touched one of these projects or something like that. There may be a couple days go by sometimes, which I don't even like that. I like to at least take an hour a day and plug away at something, even if it sucks. It sort of moves the ball a little bit, or at least keeps me attached to it. And with 2 or 3 in motion right now has been good, because I could be writing the script for the grindhouse one, and then I'll hit a wall there, and then I can turn back and work on some of the alien stuff. Although the alien stuff is now in a position where I almost have to sit down at a keyboard and work through all the panel descriptions, and that requires like a certain focus in a certain environment. But yeah, I haven't had a sense of burnout.
That's good,
if ever. But
what does it help too that now you're doing, instead of doing a monthly series for for many years
indefinitely?
Yeah, you just do 5 of something, then you switch genres and do like 5 of something else, and then you switch genres again.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a good sense of creative balance when you know you're telling a story that ends. maybe you come back to it at some point. Like I said, Demetrios wants to do another of the Skull Warrior character. So we'll come back to that world. Maybe he wants to come back and do Rysk, maybe, whatever. But these stories are told, with an ending in mind, so it feels like it's a complete story, with a little bit of a tease. Hey, there could be more. And I think there's strength in that for me, because I know what the ending is, and then I can get to the ending. There's a little bit of flexibility in terms of the timeline, and then I can go back in and reverse engineer some things earlier on to fit better with that ending. You suddenly pick up on a bit that feels right, that's interesting at the end, and you want to thread that through earlier. So actually, with the Alien one, I did what I normally do, which is I did a punch list for everything, which means like 2-word descriptions of every panel on every page, and then I start to blow those out with more description. But I find I've been jumping around on that a lot. Here's a scene in a plane. I'll do 3 pages of that in issue 3, and then I hit a wall or something, and then I jump to issue 5, and I start writing a scene there, because I sort of know where all the pieces are. But having a finite structure for a story is much better than like it just has to keep going and going and going.
And then the Alien one, you just have the X-Files on a continuous loop, right?
I just actually did start watching the X-Files, not for inspiration on this, but just like I've just absorbed so much of that stuff. I kind of wanted to see is it really still pretty good, and because I liked a lot of the X-Files up until it just got weird. Whatever it was, season 7 or 8. It was. I remember it being a very surprising series when it first came on for me, because it. Fox was fairly new, maybe brand new, and most of their shows were shit and trash and awful. And it looked in the commercials like this is the cheesiest, worst thing ever. And even from the first episode, it was pretty classy, and so it was a great surprise.
Well, if you're still researching, I would like to recommend Project Blue Book if you have Peacock.
Is that like
it's based on the true story of the guy that came up with the swamp gas story?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No. Okay. I'll definitely check that one out. Yeah. I mean, I recently read was it Comes a Pale Horse, which is like the ultimate conspiracy book, which apparently was a huge fodder for the X-Files itself, and that was just loopy like that. It started off like, oh, okay, this guy seems like he's making sense, and then it just went in so many different directions.
And the tin hat comes out,
and but who knows? Maybe he's right about everything. I mean, but that was wide ranging. That wasn't just aliens and such. Abduction's good. I'm reading that now by John Mack, who's a Harvard psychologist who began to specialize in abductee and regression hypnosis. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's quite the rabbit hole. Many different things to go down. I think that's like everybody's like first conspiracy. First conspiracy theory.
I mean, I read all these. I started off with Chariots of the Gods, 1,000 years ago, and this was sort of my mother's milk, growing up, and then, I fell out of it, and rereading it now for this, it's interesting that so much of it, like, there's a lot of things that haven't changed. And some of the stories are, they're still talking about Barney and Betty Hill, the couple that was abducted, in New Hampshire back in 1960, whatever, 67, 64. So that is a story that continues to sort of circulate. But there are things that sort of make you go, that's interesting. If these things are appearing over military bases and such, why is anybody treating this more seriously? If you were at a Cessna plane and you suddenly, decide to fly over a, restricted military airspace,
you're
you know,
getting
wouldn't
shut
every,
down.
yeah, or there'd be huge investigations and all this other stuff. And meanwhile, people are seeing these and they're sort of like being, you know, reporting these, and they're kind of being like, yeah, okay, let's move on. And
Swamp gas, nothing to see here.
swamp gas, right? He did regret that later, like that
Yeah,
particular,
yeah.
you know, which is, you know, he became actually a pretty interesting, I think, figure. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but yeah, it's definitely a rabbit hole, and there's definitely, you know, and that's with this particular story, you know, trying to strike a balance between being a little pulpy with it, but also, yeah, I'm really interested in seeing what the tone is. I'm writing it with a little bit of like kooky flair, but at the same time, I'm treating it not outlandish, you know, either. But I said to Demetrios, he could read it, and we could keep the same story, and I could make it a lot more serious. You know, just with a shift in sort of tone and, you know, some dialogue and such. So I'm really I'm interested in what he'll say when he sees the you know, the actual blowing out of it all.
Okay, and I have to say it, Phil. We're here to talk about the penultimate issue of Rysk.
Penultimate,
number
nice
4.
word.
Take a
For
drink,
20
teacher,
extra
Phil.
points. Yes.
Yes. I do love. I like the first page. We kind of get the origin of, or at least the inspiration for
Right.
the development of the Rysk AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the little pieces of her life, you know, from before. You know, I thought worked well as like a
Yes.
little flavor, and then just doing just enough of it there, and then sometimes doing a call back to it with a line of dialogue, you know, later always worked nicely, but not having to kind of, but then focusing everything on what comes next. This is a cool cover.
Oh yeah.
Although she's so far in the background, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's Rysk book, you know.
She's sharing the spotlight, and that's okay.
Exactly.
We love that.
And that's one thing I do have to compliment you is like there were a lot more characters in this issue, like, you know, like the whole break-in team and everything, and it didn't seem crowded.
Good. Like you keep track of everything. I mean, that's a testament to Mannix as well. You know, he did a nice
Yes,
job.
that's what I was gonna say. And
You
an
know,
artist, yeah.
but certainly, yeah. I mean, I had a pretty distinct idea of what I wanted everybody to accomplish, and it was important that her team, you know, Ruby's team, you know, get the catbird seat, but Helvid and his fun folks, you know, were a good counterbalance. You know, once I saw that angle.
Was there any? Oh, sorry, Phil.
No. I was just gonna say no. It was a nice little like futuristic kind of Ocean's 11 or.
Yeah.
If you love the heist, like a heist film, kids, yeah, especially this issue was.
Well, that was Demetrios's like original pitch, you know, and that was what he was so adamant about, you know, was or not adamant, but you know, that's what, you know, it was like she's a bookie and there's a heist, and that was go, and you know, those were his, you know, his sort of not little ingredients, but sort of main ingredients, you know, he wanted there. So you know, it was important that the heist worked out, and then we had a lot of back and forth on whether Ruby wears a helmet or not, you know, for many text messages and emails, and you know, and you know, it could look like this, and you know, here's some inspiration, and what if he does this, and you know, I think she has a helmet that she sort of uses as a power source or battery recharger, but I said her whole look is kind of distinctive. She doesn't need, you know, a helmet to define who she is. She's got a good silhouette, and you know, her whole look kind of works well. So I think it became less important over time, but the heist was always like the core, you know, the core thing this was all leading up to.
But no, I mean, just the way you flesh everything out, even I was just like, oh no, what happened to the Rysk AI? No.
Oh, spoiler alert. Yeah, you know.
I didn't say what happened. I'm just saying,
you
no,
know.
Like, no, what happened?
Right. Yeah, there's some yeah, I was there's like a couple lines in there, and then next issue, you know, like with what's going on, we're like, this is terrible. You kind, you know, you just, especially as you're crafting these type of characters who are all new, I think there's even a little bit more ownership, of them, for me at least, where you sort of become, uh, uh, very aligned with them. So when you start to screw with them more, you feel some level of upset.
Well, that's good. That's good.
As opposed to sadist, it's like, yeah, let's screw with them. Although you have to screw with them, that's the point. Take the characters you love and screw with them. Make their lives miserable.
And I love when some of the characters are going through like their origins and stuff, and Ruby's like, "Yeah, my first bet, I bet my mom I wouldn't make friends in kindergarten."
That feels personal, honestly.
I did not make that bet, but I did have a mother and a grandmother who I found out years later when they would pick me up from grade school. They'd be laughing at me as I would like come down the ramp from the school, because I would have like a little bow tie and a little briefcase and stuff, and so they would be cackling at me. So that may have been why I didn't have many friends either. So
I feel like that needs to be our new logo, is a young Dan Chichester with the bow tie and everything.
There you go.
I know the exact person we're gonna get to draw it.
I love it. I look forward to it. You just have to do a GIF of the bow tie spinning, around. So
I know you're a seasoned pro, but do you find penultimate issues harder to write, to strike the right balance to set up for the final issue, or more the final issue and saying goodbye and making sure everything's wrapped up the way that you want?
Well, to me, I didn't necessarily look at it as a penultimate issue. I looked at it throughout. I think you said something about this last time, in terms of the way the structure was playing out, I think well for you. It was important to sort of just move things ahead and get to a good, I want to know what happens next space. And, this is on much more of a direct drive to get to the, Mal is testing Ruby in issue 1, revealing himself in issue 2, recruiting them to the heist in issue 3. Now the heist is happening in issue 4 and then going south. So there's a linear sort of path. Whereas the Skull Warrior one, just took a different approach. It's much more episodic in a way, each issue. And maybe that was also because I did a lot of sword and sorcery research. I read a lot of stuff, reread a lot of stuff. I love Gail Simone's, work on Red Sonja.
It definitely
I
has a
absorbed
certain
that.
rhythm,
Yeah, exactly. And the rhythm is, that there's a bigger, at least the rhythm I picked up on was, there can be a bigger world and experience, and you can tell a big multi-issue story, certainly. But I also like the feeling of the episodic ideas, but still that each issue would end, even if they were episodes, with something that would grab your attention, and pull you into the next one. So that's more, my feeling is, have I left myself and hopefully the reader in a place where
tenterhooks. Gotta know.
Yeah, there's a hook, right? As opposed to issues over, wah wah, and I like the rhythm, of how these have played out, and each one has been written, in a different way. The character of it is, I feel, are very, very different. With the alien one, I think I'm going to write it without any narration at all. There'll be I think I'm going to use a couple of captions to sort of establish some place and time more quickly. But so each one is taking on its own character. But I do like the idea more about just making sure there's a hook, for you, the reader, to want to come back and see what happens next.
Yeah, I definitely need to know what happens next.
Oh yeah.
Invested this money. You better pay off that last issue. I've come along this far in this ride.
And I know you're probably going to say I'm off base. This isn't anything what it means, but when they do the whole eyeball thing and the whole does it hurt? Oh, Graph Tech always hurts, but it's the price of looking good. I'm like, is that a comment on plastic surgery or not?
No, I think it was just a comment on the fact some of these guys look freakazoid, right? Borsi's, malformed, Helvid, is a train wreck. It's just, even Ruby, is not exactly, well put together, all together.
Because that could kind of be a sequel, don't you think? It's just like, you come back and it's like now people are getting like the implants who don't need it, but just because, that's the hip new trendy thing or something, or
well, there's some of that, right? I mean, there's some of that I think we do in issue 2
Yeah.
when, we sort of talk a little bit more about graph tech, and, everything was done just to kind of be functional initially. Like, I don't have an arm. Well, we can get you an arm. Like, I'm missing part of my face. We can kind of make that work. But then people began to sort of say, well, wait a minute, I don't just need to get ordinary legs. I can get, killer fast legs or all these accessories. What I thought was kind of interesting, I don't know where I go with it, but I was talking to Demetrios, about, the world, if this happened, like whatever it is, 7 years ago or something, I can't remember the exact timeline, but now there's a new, you're on the cusp of, like, anybody born after that isn't melted, right? So now you got a whole bifurcated world of people of this graph tech, and then younger people kind of coming up. And do they feel that they are either better because they're not mechanized, or do they feel that they're being left out and they want to consciously transform themselves, like do that sort of thing? I don't need this, but I want it, because I want to really cyberpunk myself out. I mean, I kind of like the angle here of just that these people had to do it, versus, a lot of cyberpunk stuff is people just choose to do it. Yeah, they're doing it right. They're doing it. Yeah, which is cool in its own way.
Like a red carpet outside an award show. Oh, the cybernetics make you look 20 years younger, or something.
Right. Or, they're flexing or showing off or doing whatever. But yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, 5 will end with a, with a sort of promise that there could be more, if there was a desire. But
if
I don't
you,
know.
the reader, demand it.
Yeah, if you're the reader, demand it.
Just need a mouse spinoff. I'm just gonna be so real with you.
Which spinoff?
A mouse spinoff. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, Mal is fun.
But you just let a villain be a villain. I love that.
Yeah, you just see the whole thing from his side. Flip the whole thing around, tell the exact same story from Mal's point of view. And then it's just, wait a minute, I got screwed over. I did have a daughter, and maybe he does. I don't know.
And I don't think I'm spoiling too much, because I think everyone kind of assumed this was coming. But I think the quote of the issue is, "The truth is, I dicked you over."
And how often can you really just write that with ease? Well, that line works for everything.
Anymore.
But you feel like it's pacing itself. I mean, you guys have followed along this whole journey.
Yeah.
So it's still delivering and still kind of unpacking the world, for you.
Oh, definitely. Was there anything like left on the quote unquote cutting room floor that you couldn't squeeze into this issue that you would have liked to?
No, I thought it. No, I mean there wasn't. I mean there was a couple places where
we got 5 issues this time, Lil.
Yeah, I mean there was some stuff I thought, and this gets back to something you said earlier. Like, Demetrios has been very flexible in terms of timing. Like, it's not necessarily take all the time in the world, but take the time you need. So that's allowed me to kind of the luxury of, I guess, being able to work through things. So I could repace stuff if maybe it was feeling too crowded, or maybe there were a couple of scenes where I didn't know where it needed to go. So it was a little bit flabby, or it needed more going on in it. So by being able to have that flexibility of time, I was able to either repace things or fill in some new detail of the world. Like last issue's grid game, was something that kind of came up later. I don't think it was originally in the initial sort of outline of the story. But once I was able to I knew I wanted something. I wanted some kind of competitive event. But once I got into that more, I thought that played out nicely as a way to sort of enrich the world a little bit. And it was good to sort of be able to figure out how do you play something like that out and still keep Ruby, heavily involved. So you're not sort of like, well, what does the scene have to do with anything? But it actually sort of establishes aspects of the world. It reestablishes her strategy. It sets something up with, a new adversary, who shows up now at the end of 4, and allows me to bring together, a few other, places like that. But nothing got left. Fortunately, one little scene gets left out of the alien pacing, which was a fun little bit. But that's jumping ahead to a totally different story. But that was okay because that was always sort of extraneous anyway.
The whole alien thing, like I was going to say before, I think the way the world is now, it used to be, are aliens coming to take over? Now it's like, are aliens coming to take over? Please.
Yeah, exactly. Please. Yeah, I'm waiting for that thing that's out by Jupiter. Like, if it's a friggin'
I'm tired of paying taxes. Just do it already.
Yeah, I'm tired of stupid people. Like, like this some kind of dark forest event. Just come and just end it. Yeah.
All of a sudden, Independence Day is a feel-good story.
Exactly. Oh, thank you. We all go up to the sky. But yeah, that'll be interesting to play out once that's starts to kind of come together. Maybe I'll take you through like the bones of the story. You could help me figure out a title for the damn thing because it's
Phil loves to name things. He does.
Yeah, it's like you get hung up on sometimes you get hung up on things like that, or at least I do, and then it sort of drags you back, drags you down, slows you down. And one of the best pieces of writing advice I got from David Quinn, which was as you're writing something, just if you hit a wall like that or anything, just write angry word goes here. Cool sounding line goes here, and just move on, because you'll drag yourself down by trying to get the right thing right in that moment.
Now, I was just gonna say, is the alien story going to be like the X-Files? And if you do need help with dialogue for Agents Hellfire and Perich, we will be more than happy.
Yes, get you guys in.
Yeah,
it's like I do have.
The code name is Eve Heavenwater for the comics, Phil.
Oh God.
I do have a couple, not Men in Black, but Men in Blue. Who well, maybe I'll see how that fits for you guys. And although they do not come to a good end, so who knows?
That's okay. That's totally fine with me.
Hey, Lilith and I will buy a bunch of copies so we can sign them.
There you go. We'll see if we can get you on the cover.
I have a feeling. Are you really feeling it with the alien story? I'm thinking you're gonna, come back to Demetrius after like the first series, and be like, yeah, I got like 2 or 3 more in the pipeline if you want them. Yeah.
Oh, you could do a ton of stuff with that. I mean, his initial inspiration for that was tonally, not like in terms of concept, but tonally was if you remember that old Mel Gibson movie, Conspiracy Theory, where he's a total nut job. And
wait, we're talking the movie, right?
The movie. Before we knew.
Before, yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Sorry, you have to qualify that. And so that vibe, one of the I'm going to say one of the main characters, has that vibe, just constantly spouting, that stuff like it was free association, and that sort of semi-manic, energy. And so that can go like any number of places. I mean, this one is focused, full bore on the alien aspect. And in fact, that becomes a really, I think, kind of interesting underpinning for the whole reason for the story and the characters he connects with. So I think it probably would always stay in that zone. But it could also pick up on other conspiracies or other oddities or cryptozoology sort of things, and then you could pull them back around and sort of say, oh, it's aliens, right? It's like that kook, on what was
Not
that show?
saying it's
Ancient.
aliens, but it's
I'm not saying
aliens.
exactly him. Yeah. I told Demetrios the
I
whole
love
social
that
campaign.
meme.
That whole social
The
campaign for
first
this.
cover should be a parody of that meme. I'm
Exactly.
just
That's what
saying.
I said. I said we should just do that meme like 1,000 times. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's yeah. I love that. I watched a few of those, and they were just like the like there were so many catchwords that just kept coming up again and again. Like some people say, and it's possible that like everything sort of starts with like this, just non-logical associations.
I remember a time when I used to watch the History Channel, and my grandpa used to ask me, this is kind of like one of those things, is Hitler still losing? It's like, yeah, well, not no more. We haven't seen a good, like, World War II documentary on History Channel in decades at this point.
I won't be able to find, like, this was my this is my alien, like, notebook, right? This is all my, like, notes I was taking for, like,
Ooh.
the story. So I won't be able to find it, like, while we're talking, but there's a whole, basically like a bunch of lunatics or profiteers, who are making
Grifters.
grifters, who are essentially making like uh but they've got a fancy name for it, but like they're documentaries, that are delusional, right? They're not quite deep fakes, but they made one apparently where it showed
Oh, the
aliens.
dissection of the alien. I remember that. That
No,
aired on.
no,
Oh,
no,
not
no.
that one.
They're fighting in World War I, and so it looks like it's a documentary, as if these aliens are fighting, in World War I, and then they're showing it, with the mildest of disclaimers, and so people kind of coming into it with no context of any history, would be watching this and sort of saying, "Oh yeah, that happened. I saw a documentary on the History Channel about it," and
Well, that's your first mistake.
right, but it's like, but that's the whole thing, right? It's on the History Channel, so it must be factual.
I'll
And
never
this,
forgive them for the mermaid documentary. I'll never
oh,
forgive them for that one. Where they made like this documentary. It was like a mermaid, and they were dissecting it, and just like the alien one too.
just
It
like
was
the alien one.
mermaids. Yeah.
Kooky, crazy. But so what's going to happen with Risk? What do you, any predictions for the next round? Or
Her and Mal are gonna kiss and end up together.
there you, damn man, did I send you the script by accident? It's sort of like it all comes around. I was doing this
I'm
for
shipper
you.
trash. Don't mind me.
I did it all for you, Ruby. I did it all for you. Right?
I have a feeling. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I'm thinking someone's gonna die, and I don't know. You said that you're leaving it open for a possibility of a sequel, so I'm like, I'm just hoping Ruby makes it out, but I'm just like, I just spin it off somebody else. I don't know.
That could be, yeah, exactly. Or we just increase the size of the team. We go from the Ocean's 11 to Ocean's 12, and it's sort of like we just keep adding more folks as it goes along.
See, franchise. No, I did. I like you were asking about the pacing and stuff. I mean, no, it's perfect. I know. I was like, I was halfway through this issue, and I was like, oh damn, we only got one more issue.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's really good to hear. I mean, it's sort of, I'm mindful of you guys knowing, so much of my work, and especially comparing it to what was before and, what is now. So it's good to know that it's engaging and keeping you, interested, and, for something that's brand new and doesn't have any sort of connection to, oh, I've always loved Daredevil and you did a really good Daredevil, or I always loved Nick Fury. These are things that don't have any association aside from what you're starting off with, a kind of a blank page. So that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, I feel like a kid again. I keep getting all this. I got new Chichester content just keep rolling out. So
yeah, exactly. So hopefully it keeps making
When
sense.
is the when is the trade coming out again?
I don't know. I don't know what his
feel
timing
like it's
is.
on the website, and I just can't remember. I'm gonna look.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
I am gonna enjoy like I only like to touch my like floppy copies like once, whereas I like to just dog ear the the trades.
the
So
heck out of the trade.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know I'm hoping there's not another little gap with 5. I know there was a little bit of a, you know, he thought there might be some timing issue with 5. I mean, if that's the case, then that's something that just sometimes is out of the control. But I don't know what his timing normally is. If he tries to do it, X weeks, X months, whatever after. I'm sure it's a balancing act right now with costs of paper, and I don't know if he prints stateside or if he prints overseas, or there's so many freaking factors right now in terms of I don't know like quite how much the distribution has settled out, but the other things are have to be a nightmare and a headache for a publisher.
It's printed with our former friends in Canada. So
well, then that's a problem, right? I mean, that's a cost
the tariffs,
issue.
yeah.
So I mean, let alone just everything being more expensive. But yeah, I mean, tariffs. Now the the additional shipping costs. Yeah. So yeah, we haven't talked about that, but hopefully it doesn't affect it too much. But that's make comics great again. So there you go. And
seriously, $1.99.
You know what? Tell Demetrius, do the same thing I see it at work all the time. If price goes up on something, when they send you an invoice or whatever, there's they make their own separate line. Here's what the tariff costs. Or all these companies are like, don't blame us. This is what.
Yeah, I think people understand that, but on the other hand, it sort of gets to, you just have to make a decision. Well, I can't buy it then, right? So that's the worst thing. I walk away from it. And there are stores or companies that have closed, not comics companies, but just somebody who's running a pretty good business doing X or producing Y, and they can't do anything with it anymore. So they got to go out of business. They can't ship it in. They can't pay the costs. And obviously, I don't want that to happen to anybody, especially Demetrius. Always got some stuff for me to do. But
I was going to say, I don't think anybody still knows the whole story behind what Diamond did.
I don't know. I mean,
I mean, if you care to dig through the legal paperwork, it's out there, but it's just really sad. Like I said, monopolies are no good, my friend. No matter what the industry, monopolies are no good.
No, why would that ever be good? When does that ever work out? To benefit. I mean, were you guys? I have one cable company, right? Where we are, like many people do. So you're stuck with it. Now I think there might be a separate one, but they're the service is apparently horrible. So you're still stuck with the main one. And how is that ever to any benefit? Somebody just paid off enough early on to kind of get a monopoly and a lock on a particular market, and then you're stuck with it. But that's another dystopian, cyberpunk-ish theme to work with.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it, and I'm very much looking to the trade for whenever it comes out. But it's been a pretty fun ride. It's been ticking all the boxes. Like I said, like I'm just kind of tired of just like traditional, like just superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I like a little grayness, a little amorality.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that this could be a superhero-ish story, and certainly I think she has superhero aspects to it or adventure aspects. But what is there anything that doesn't work for you guys? Just that normally is my territory.
Mal and Ruby don't end up together, it doesn't work for me.
Then it's going to fall apart. All right.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Now I really like the antagonistic. Just like there's very subtle digs at each other. I like it. I do. I don't have a problem. I like it all.
It just hit me when Lil said, it's not a traditional superhero story. I'm just like, it reminds me of some old school storytelling, because it's like, and now with like Marvel and DC, it's like, okay, does this line up with the movies?
Check just original IP is just so refreshing at the end of the day.
Demetrios gave you like 2 like talking points, but besides that, it's you and your team. That's the
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was more back and forth, between us, and obviously I pitched my idea and, in pitching the idea, I took it in a much different direction to sort of justify what Ruby was and how she got her abilities. And,
I will say she did need a pet drone. I was disappointed that she didn't have a pet drone.
A pet drone, well, see, this is already talking about, sequel territory, she can start to kind of like, have something there and, many pets, why she got a menagerie,
there we go. I've got 4 dogs. I have no problem with it.
It's like Harry Potter's owl, she can,
oh no, we don't talk about the bird.
We don't talk traumatic when he died or just that was off-screen death. That was pretty hard. But I felt pain at that one.
I mean, there was kind of a drone in this for 2 seconds, but you don't want that to be your pet, though.
Yeah, no. Or do you?
Oh,
no. We're not doing any drone personalities. We got enough other stuff to kind of go on with.
So I think we did talked about, did you do any like gambling homework, any research on this?
Are you hitting the casinos now?
I mean, no, I did a fair amount of research. I did a lot of research for this. I mean, it was once I sort of settled in on it, talking about like at the end of this, when she finds that Mal's, obviously been full of shit and there is no medical tech. There is this, advanced, processor, the whole idea of like edge computing and then, some kind of AI chip done in that way, or what I think I call it the Norn processor and that sort of thing. Like there was a lot of research, not as much as the aliens, but a fair amount of research about some AI details. So it wasn't just, hey, it's AI like everything else is, or talking about like how the human body with the right encouragement, this being encouragement, from Rysk internally, could potentially augment itself, by creating some intellectual control over what are normally autonomic systems, right? Your breathing and your heart rate. If you could sort of gain effective control over those, then you would be able to do the things that Ruby is able to do if she pushes herself a little. Her muscles are not getting, saturated in acids, or she's able to, control her breathing and move a little bit faster. So, her edge is not superhuman, but it's based upon certain, being able to control the human limits a little more. So there was, a certain amount of research there, and even, Mal's bullshit story, from earlier on, that you're going after a certain, cell inhibitor from a cancer. That was stuff I did, for years in healthcare marketing, so I'll count that as research, and those are actual.
Hey, use what you know.
You use what you know, and so it was fun to kind of incorporate that, in, but, and even, things about like Prague and little details there and where it was based, where the facility was, certain aspects of how the facility is powered, and being able to think about, all right, what are the cues that Ruby's team, picks up on to realize, wait a minute, this isn't what they say it is. And, so I didn't go a mile deep because I didn't want to get bogged down in a bunch of superfluous details and make it about that. But I felt I leaned into it in a way that gave me more than just doomsday device and cyberpunk tropes and such.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is I know you were researching tech all the way back in the 90s. Are you always keeping up with like tech news, or did you have to like do like a deep dive when you started this series?
Has a 3D printer and a drone. Of course he does.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm a bit of a tech head. I mean, not to the level of, when that 3D printer jams up, I'm not going to fix it necessarily myself. I'm without watching a lot of YouTube videos.
Hello, son.
Yeah.
Are you busy?
We exchange notes about it. But yeah, I mean, that's always been like, an area of interest, for me. And I think I've spun out a lot of stories over time, based on, a, a term here or, a trend here. The trick with this is once I started to think about the AI stuff, I didn't want to fall into, as I said before, everything now is AI this and AI that.
Even when it's not.
Even when it's not, very often when it's not, or the fact of what the miracles, quote unquote, it can perform, and the miracles it can't perform. So I didn't want it just become, especially since this was going to be in the future from when I was writing it. I wanted to use it, and I thought it was an interesting way to talk about what's giving her bookie edge. But I didn't want to do something that was going to be dated by the time it came out. So fortunately, I don't think, I don't feel it has been, like
Hopefully
I'm not
you didn't
reading
give
it now.
anybody any sinister ideas.
Yeah, but I think I was much more prescient, in the, Tree of Knowledge story, from back in Daredevil days, where the whole, just
It's
using.
like the future doesn't look like the future anymore, We're just kind
Right,
of stuck. No flying
right,
cars.
right. Or the goat, was it
No
the,
replicators yet.
yeah, or it's the, is it the William, Gibson, quote, the future's already here. It's just not very evenly distributed, so.
Preach.
Yeah. Oh, spoilers for issue 5. Yes, I'll be like, yes, we need to use this antiquated technology called Chat GPT.
Exactly. They'll just like, or we'll just have like, maybe I could do like a comic book scene of like those
Claude's like, I'm
awesome,
jealous. Nobody ever
right.
talks about me.
Somebody just, hammering right at the keyboard, like all the hacker scenes and
I'm in.
in movie. I'm in. Exactly. Do you ever see a movie? It's a 14-minute piece of brilliance called Kung Fury. Have you ever
I
seen
don't
this?
think so.
Oh my God, you have got to go find this on the YouTube. This guy, I think he's Scandinavian or Danish. He made this absolutely, excuse me, bug fuck like tribute to like kung fu movies and Miami Vice, style like cop movies, and he melded them all together into this thing called Kung Fury, and it's basically Hitler is the Kung Führer, and he's manipulating time, and he's going to take. It's just crazy as all get out. But anyway, there's a character called Hacker Man in it, who it's a great little 30-second scene, where it's just like, punching away at the keyboard and I'm hacking time. It's impossible to describe, but well worth your time to find it. So.
I think that's something we can bring to the gang to review, Phil.
Oh my God, it is so brilliant. And he was going to make a sequel, and I think he got financing. I've actually seen like footage of this, like a full-on thing, but it hasn't been released. He got Schwarzenegger to play the president, and
Wow.
it was nuts. It was nuts. Huge. It was huge, like a long time ago, but it's still hysterical. He did all the special effects himself. He got David Hasselhoff to like, like I think play. Yeah, it just the genius of things is just keeps coming on. It's 15 minutes of your time. I tell you, well worth it.
As a German-born person, I literally have to watch everything David Hasselhoff is in. So thank you.
There you go. Yep. Now you can put it on the list.
Donald was right. Germans love David Hasselhoff. I know the answer to this is going to be no, because I'm sure I'd see pictures of it if it came to pass. No one has done any Rysk cosplay yet in any con appearances for you?
No. I mean, I think it's I don't know like how much penetration it has, right? It's a smaller publisher. People who've read it, who I've heard from, seem to really dig it. But I haven't seen anything distinctive.
Nobody wants to
in
travel
that way.
anymore, Phil.
That's true. Because again,
travel is hard right now.
I was gonna say. I mean, even still, you haven't seen any Black Armor cosplay yet, have you?
No, I mean there were two guys in Phoenix who did absolutely dynamite Daredevil cosplay. I mean they had super costumes, a lot of 3D printed elements. They were sort of both, say Born Again TV series adjacent, but with their own flourishes, so they had a little bit of that, I'll say more, modular, structured, type of thing, as opposed to just, red, spandex. And they were very impressive. They were nice guys. And, I challenged them both, I said, and they were really intrigued. We were talking about what they would do and how they would do it. And I offered my standing offer, you get a full set of Fall from Grace and, the original issues. And, they seemed into it. So maybe if I go back to Phoenix, they would do it. But I have not seen that, taken to that level. It seems very doable.
I think this is Phil wanting me to come down and help him with his costume. I think that was
yeah, all for it. I mean, I'm going to Dragon Con tomorrow. If I'm going to see costumes, it's going to be anything.
Dragon Con. Well, last time I went to Dragon Con was pre-pandemic, but Dragon Con is pretty epic in general.
It seems it.
Is
it
this
looks
your
it.
time at Dragon Con?
Yeah, I've never been. I was supposed to go last summer, but when my wife got hurt, I had to cancel. So this is my.
I think you'll love it. Be write your cup of tea. Make sure you're in the green room anytime you can get a chance to. You're gonna.
Yeah, I got to see if there is a green room for the comics guys. I don't know.
There should be.
The vibe. I hope so. You need
like I said, it's been pre-pandemic, but they are very good to their guests, and the green room is epic at Dragon Con
cool
for guests.
So. But it's very spread out. I mean, it's sort of like there's different. There's 4 or 5, I guess, hotels it's in, and I know the comics pop art thing is a whole floor, but it's a whole floor in Hotel X, and then other things are in other other areas. So what I'm going to try to do is also, usually I go to these things and I feel so responsible. I just kind of plant myself at my table and don't move. But I'm going to force myself to actually travel. So I see
definitely network when you're not, if you can get a chance. I think you'll find some very interesting people there. So.
Yeah. But the green rooms where you get to, cross over with other folks, like GalaxyCon has great green rooms, and they don't, they mix and match, so I've been in there and, I saw Charlie Cox fawning over Andy Serkis and then Jonathan Frakes sat down at the table I was at, and we had a 30-second conversation about the travesty of baked Cheetos. It was, he seemed too cool, and I was way too starstruck to kind of get into a real conversation. But I was, he seemed like the nicest guy. But
I would have said, believe it or not.
And I thanked Al.
Don't steal that. That's my joke.
I saw Al Yankovic, at the breakfast thing one time, and I was like, you're not going to remember this at all. But, I told him this story of he gave my son all this encouragement at this concert we went to. And, it was, that's fun. I mean, that's really kind of neat, neat crossover stuff.
Well,
let's not keep them too late then.
Well, I was going to say, that answered my other question. Any upcoming appearances?
That's, as far as I know, that's probably the last of the year. I mean, this year hasn't been as busy as, say, the year before. But I think this is, this will be the last, one. So if folks are in Atlanta, I don't know if this runs right away, but if you're in Atlanta this weekend and you're going to Dragon Con, come see me. That'd be a lot of fun. I'm on 4 or 5 panels, as well as being at a table, so that'll be kind of neat to kind of have discussions with folks. I think one's about Jim Shooter, one's about Daredevil and the Punisher, one's about I think just comics in the 90s, and one's about the writers room, just talking about writing. So hopefully there's good moderators and good people on them. I know Tom DeFalco's on at least one, so that one I'm not worried about at all. But the others, you never know. Please show up. The Shooter one, I'm sure, will be very good as well. I know John Beatty's on that. He worked a lot with him.
Very cool. Love to see that you're so busy and so.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun.
Invested in just putting out work into the world. Really.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, no, listen, you guys have been a big part of that journey. So I always thank you and always give you guys credit for helping me look at this, with fresh eyes and reassess it. And I think that gave me a lot of, confidence, before things, start to kind of open up to actually doing some new stuff. So, I mean that, very grateful for that.
Just waiting for the day an issue of his comes out and says, inspired by two dummies on the Capes and Lunatics.
I will, we'll work it into. I think the Alien one has a good scene. I can work that into.
I'd brag. I'd be like, "Where are those dummies? Where are those dummies?"
Exactly. It would totally be framed in my office.
Anything else? Story Maze.
That's been keeping up pretty well. I mean, I wrote 2 nice tributes. I thought they were nice tributes. Last 2 entries I did on that was one for Jim Shooter and one for Margaret Clark, who was my partner, so much of my early, writing, and she unfortunately passed away this year, as well. So, but I've got some, new ones lined up, so I'll probably start pushing those out again next week, and I'm sure I'll get some fodder from, from the show to kind of, so it hasn't been as regular as it was, but it hasn't been as irregular as it has been, either. But, there's that. There's, the Street Writers book, if you're interested in writing and perspectives on writing, that is, out there on demand on Amazon.
Go buy now, kids. Because I think we're going to cover that in like 2 months. So
yeah, so some good advice, I think, and some ridiculous back and forth with my podcast partner Mark Belushi. Hopefully have some news about what we're going to do with Axel's Infernal. Maybe next month. Carl had some health problems. I think I mentioned, came out the other side well, but recovering, and I'll be touching base with him to see what we want to do with number 2, which is still in pre-launch. We're still gathering names, but I think we're going to turn the key on it in one way or the other, fairly soon. These Rysk is wrapping up. So if you folks are out there, tell your comic shop to check it out, or go on to blackboxcomics.net and order it directly, from them. If you can't find your local comic shop.
I will say I've had good luck with the shipping from BlackBox. So
you have?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Good.
And I think it's on. Just so you know.
Yep. Yeah, and physical comics are great, but if you like it digital, I believe it is on Global Comics, where you can read it, on there as well. So lots of options, and these new ones that we've been sort of talking about in between I think he still wants to get, I'm just calling it Skull Warrior until he figures out what he's calling it, which may be Skull Warrior for all I know. My latest offering was the Prince of Pain and Suffering, but I don't know if you like that. And I was only half joking. But I think he's going to try to get that out, this year as well. So, this Rysk may end and that may start up. But that's going to be a fun one. Again, the Rodney Buscemi is the artist on that, and he's just kicked it, all over the place. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, I think you showed us a
image.
Yeah, that looks really good.
It's really, really, really wild. And a thoughtful artist, on it. Mannix has been as well, but Rodney's really, asked a lot of questions, and a couple of places where I was like, I'm not quite sure about that. He's been good, and went back in and rethought some stuff. So I try to kind of keep it hands off to a degree and make sure people, feel that they're putting their ownership into it, because they're doing the heavy lift on that end of it.
So is that all Demetrius, picking the artists? And
yeah, I mean, he's publisher. It's his domain. He's asked my opinion on a couple things, which I'm happy to offer. But it's a balance of who's available, who do you know is going to deliver, who's affordable. All things like that. So I mean, that's a tough thing. Especially sometimes you find people who are available, and maybe they're affordable, and maybe they're an up and comer. Or but then they're not reliable, and you find that out later. So that's a tricky thing, for somebody in his position. So
I mean, everything I've seen so far, I mean, like on your books, it looks good. So you must.
No, really
you
great.
You should
team.
definitely check out a little bit more of BlackBox. Like I said, they have a really great variety of different things.
Yeah,
just the preview stuff I've seen of the other books. Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, I'm like.
Yeah, it's a real diverse range of stuff. I mean, he keeps prodding me for like help him do his crossover stuff. Well, can you feature this? I mean, next issue, spoiler alert, we do have like one tiny little bit of black box sort of nod.
You had mentioned that. He mentioned that. So I was.
Did I mention that?
Yeah.
So what for another book?
For another black box book. So it's like,
Right.
you know, I said, because he said, can you do anything? And I said, maybe this might work. This might feel semi-logical. And I am actually thinking of working in a reference to Rysk, sort of in the Alien one. But not, we'll see. So it's so I can be the thin thread that sort of connects, you know, aspects. And Skull Warrior actually has a full-on reference to Jin Hunter. So so
that kind of makes sense though, if you know
I'm
the property.
Yeah, but I'm the connective thread so far.
I can't wait for the aliens to learn about betting.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
But all right, so we're good.
Yes, thank you, sir. Always a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you guys. Thank you again.
And yeah, next month we'll wrap up Rysk. So
all right. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys think of the finish, and I'm really kind of happy with it. And I just need to get my copies of all these things, and I'll go bug Demetrios on my plane ride tomorrow. All right, folks, stay well. Have a great Labor Day weekend to you and everybody watching, listening.
Have a good trip. Have fun.
Thank you much. All right, guys, we'll talk soon.
See you.
Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.